Hello, my name is Asta Madan. I'm a business law attorney in Southern California. I practice mainly in Orange County, Irvine, and in Long Beach. So yesterday I did part one of this series that is going to continue for about a week. And I'm doing it because on August 1, I'm releasing a free e-guide called Simple Law for Small Businesses. I get a lot of clients that ask me basic questions that business owners should really understand, including what is a business plan, what's included in a business plan, what their choices are if they're trying to decide between different types of entities. You hear all the time about LLCs and corporations and SCorps and partnerships, but a lot of people don't know what goes into it and what kind of a commitment each of these entities is. So the guide tries to, break down what the requirements are, what the benefits are, what the disadvantages are of each type of entity, which is the right type of entity for any particular industry or any particular person or groups of people. And then the guide also has some checklists. So I'm not going to go into too much detail because you'll be able to read all of that on August 1st in the guide. But what I wanted to do today is just introduce people to the steps that you have to take in order to create an entity in California. So every state has its department. Sometimes it's called the Department of Business or Business Oversight, or in the case of California, it's called the Secretary of State. So when you register your entity, whether it's an LLC or a corporation, you have to do it with the Secretary of State by filing this document called the Articles. So if you have an LLC, which is a limited liability company, you would file your documents, your articles of organization. You're organizing this company and putting it together. And if you are starting a corporation, a C corporation, which whether it's going to eventually be an SCorp or not, you still have to file articles of incorporation. So again, just to review, LLCs have to file articles of organization and corporations have to file articles of incorporation. Pretty straightforward so far. So you send this information into the Secretary of State with a check for anywhere between $70 to $100. The amount can change. And within a few days, you will have a business entity. What is included in the articles is the name of the person that's organizing the entity. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the owner of the LLC yet. It can be the person that's helping you. So a lot of times attorneys or CPAs will do this type of work and help clients organize. So it would be that person's name. It would be your new company's name, whether it's the LLC's name or the corporation's name, your corporate headquarters, if you have a different mailing address, then you put your mailing address, and then you put information about your agent for service or process. So let me back up a little bit and talk about the name. So in California, if you have a limited liability company and you name it something, so let's say you have a business you're starting called Awesome Business. So if you're going to have your Awesome Business is going to be an LLC, then you actually have to put LLC in the title. So when you send in your articles, it actually has to say Awesome Business LLC. Otherwise, it's going to get rejected or it's not going to be an LLC. For corporations, there's different requirements on whether it needs to have the words CORP or INC, which stands for incorporated, in the name or not. That's a really lengthy list of requirements, so I would definitely recommend talking to an attorney or doing a little bit more research before you start the corporation. So that's just the name that's supposed to be included. Then obviously your corporate address, which cannot be a PO box, and your mailing address and your agent for service of process, like I mentioned before. So what's an agent? That's one of the questions that I get a lot, and I always try to explain to clients, even though it seems insignificant, you want to make sure that the person that you're naming is someone you have a relationship with of some sort and professional relationship, so that if they need to be used, that you actually get notice, because it's the business owner's responsibility to make sure that information is updated. So if a business gets sued and there's a lawsuit against Awesome Business LLC or Awesome Business Incorporated, The person that is filing the suit, so let's say I am filing a lawsuit against Awesome Business LLC, I'm going to go on the California Secretary of State's website and look for your agent for service of process. That's the person that you as a business owner has authorized to take legal documents on your behalf. So if you get sued, that's the person that's going to get those papers. So, you know, those movies where you say, you've been served, that's the person, the agent that's actually getting served. So you want to make sure that you stay in touch with the person whose address you're putting on there. Often attorneys will put their office address on there, or if you're going with the CPA might put their office address on there. Some people choose to pay a company to do it, where you have to be registered and in California in order to be a corporation that serves as an agent. So if you're going to pay someone a monthly or an annual fee, you could do that, or you can just have your own office address. It doesn't really matter, but regardless, make sure, because that's the only public information that's going to be available to people when they look for Awesome Business LLC. So that's the first part, is sending in your articles or your of incorporation or organization. Then the second part, that the formal steps that you're supposed to take, is within 90 days of becoming an entity, you're supposed to file a statement of information. So if you're an LLC, you're going to have members, and some of the members might be managers. They might be doing day-to-day operations. And so your articles or your statement of information might ask you for that information, and you're supposed to fill that in and send it along with another check within 90 days of your new business starting. If you're a corporation, you can do your statement of information online. So corporations can have board of directors and, you know, like officers. So if you have your treasurer, your CEO, your CFO, and secretary, different positions in your board, you can go online to file your statement of information, and you'll have to update those people's names and addresses. A lot of times, if it's a 1 or 2 person corporation, you can have the same person serving multiple positions, and then if it changes later, you let the Secretary of State know that that has changed. Those are the 2 formal steps that you're supposed to take in creating your entity and making sure that the state knows what's going on with your new business. Then the next step, which I would say you do before you even file your statement of information, is to draft your agreement. So if you are if you're forming an LLC, you will draft an operating agreement, and if you are starting a corporation, you'll draft your bylaws. So what these documents do are they really lay out kind of the framework of your company. If you're corporations, they'll lay out how many shareholders, who your investors are, what percentages of shares are owned by each of the people involved, what your day-to-day operations are going to look like, what a quorum is going to be if you need to vote and there's a disagreement, what those percentages are. So it really has a lot of information that you're going to be using throughout the course of having your entity. For an LLC, similarly, it's going to have names of the managers, the addresses of the managers. Your operating agreement will also have your mailing address, your agent for service of process. Again, a lot of information about day-to-day operations, what you're going to do. And for me personally, I think the biggest benefit that people get from having an operating agreement with an LLC